I was born in Onarga, Illinois, a small town it was about 90 miles from Chicago. And I grew up there, and the only times I'd probably get out of Onarga, I'd go to Pontiac. That was where I had more relatives. That's where I grew up in.
And when were you born in Onarga?
Yes.
When?
When I 1915, June the 15th.
Okay. So that makes you 95.
Yes, right. 95 years old, June the 15th.
All right. You had 5 brothers.
Yeah,
Or
four
four
brothers. Four brothers. Avery was the oldest, Forrest, Thelma, and Charles.
All of you served in the war.
All of them served in the United States Army, right. They've all passed away now. Nobody left here but me.
Last one.
You know, Naga was a small town. The population was about 1,600. And there were very few black people there. In fact, during the 12th, from the first grade into the 12th, I think I was only with 2 black girls during the 12 years. We were in the same. Otherwise, I was the only black person in the class. And then the classes consisted around. They were small classes. They consisted around 25 and 30 in a class. That was during the grade school. Small high school, the 4 years in high school, classes were very small. In fact, when I graduated, there wasn't about 12 of us graduated in 1936.
So you graduated from high school
Yes,
in
from Onarga Township High School.
What did your father do?
My father worked on the railroad. He worked on the railroad. He retired. Some 25, 30 years he worked on the railroad.
In what capacity? When he was a porter? He was a
No. He was a track man. They worked on the track. They called it a section at that time, and he was a part of that section. I think there was 4 of them in the section, plus the foreman.
And did all of your brothers also graduate from Onarga Township High
Yes,
School?
my brother Charles, he and I were the only 2 to graduate from the high school. My oldest brother went 2 years. He sophomore. He quit in his junior year. In football, I might say that I made the all-conference team. I was a Wasika League, and as far as every game was concerned, I was always mentioned as one of the stars. In basketball, I was just a mere ordinary basketball player, you know. I get my points, and sometimes, a couple of times there, 3 or 4 times, I was a high scorer in the game, you know. But mostly, we had a big boy that took care of everything. As far as track was concerned, I had a good record in track because I was only defeated when I got as far. I was a sprinter. I was a 10-flat man, and I only got defeated for when I got to the district. Otherwise, I covered the regionals and the county and so forth like that. I had a very good track record. In fact, that was my best part of that. That's about it as far as that was concerned.
You held some records in track, did you?
Well, I held, let's see, let me think now because I don't want to, no, because I couldn't have held any records on that, and as far as sprinting concerned, because I'd say about 10 years before I got to high school, there was a runner by the name of Morgan, and he held state records, and he was a first-class runner. And so I know good and well I didn't hold any records as far as high. So that was about it as far as my athletics concerned.
And how about the football team?
My football team.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I was on a team. By the way, I mentioned football, but I didn't mention it. We won 27 consecutive games
27
before
games.
I graduated. For 3 years, our team was undefeated.
That's astonishing for a town of only 1,600.
That was when?
Astonishing for a town that small.
Yes, yeah, right. And we played some good teams, too.
Wow.
Played some big teams.
So
that's about it as far as my
okay.
athletics is concerned.
All right.
Franklin D. Roosevelt sent me a letter, welcome to the, I was drafted in 1941, June the 30th.
June the 30th of 1941.
Of 1941.
Okay, well that's well before Pearl Harbor.
Yes, that was, that was from July, of course. Pearl Harbor wasn't until December,
Yeah. Where were you at that time?
At the time Pearl Harbor was attacked?
Yes.
Where was I had been in the Army since July then. In fact, there's a little story that goes along with that. You want to hear it?
Yes, please.
Okay. I was sitting in the barracks typing a letter to my aunt. That's who I had stayed with prior to my part in the Army. And so I was typing a letter to my aunt telling her I'll be home for Christmas. And it came over the radio, Pearl Harbor. I said, uh-oh. Then I renounced that in the letter. I said, no, I won't be able to make it. I said, I'll never make it now. They just attacked Pearl Harbor.
I see.
We were picked up at a train station. A friend, another black, a neighbor of mine, we were inducted together. In fact, what had happened, the induction board, I was supposed to be inducted sometime in January. But, being in a small town, I knew the head of the board, and I asked him to hold my induction until we got to hit Miller. That was my friend. And so we'd be inducted together.
Oh.
And so that's why we got together. So when the train pulled in, there was a white sergeant got out and then took us into the train. And in the train there was about 25 or 30 white soldiers. Ish and I were the only black soldiers there. So.
And when you say Ish, you mean Ish Miller?
Yes, I mean Ish Miller,
Uh-huh.
the friend. We stayed together for some time there in the Army. So when we got to Chicago, the sites for the white soldiers, I imagine they let them off at Fort Sheridan. Anyway, they took the two of us to the YMCA. That's where we stayed overnight.
While the white soldiers stayed at
they
Fort Sheridan.
They went.
So
we
this
stayed.
was.
By the way, when I was at the YMCA, my cousin, who had lived in Chicago, they visited us that night.
Uh-huh.
So the next morning, they put us on the train from Chicago and took us to Fort Custer. And in Fort Custer, we stayed 5 days and being inaugurated into the Army. But it might be interesting to know that during that time that the white soldiers put us in the YMCA in Chicago, we didn't see a white brother. Yeah, I call them brothers. I mean, we didn't see a white soldier or a white officer until we got to Camp David. Everything from then on was black. All the sergeants were black. They gave us all the indoctrination and so forth.
So we're talking about the segregated Army.
Yes.
Did you have any Okay. Where is Fort Custer?
Fort Custer is in Michigan, Battle Creek, Michigan.
All right. So did you have any trepidation about going into the Army, knowing that it was segregated? Had you had
no. In fact, segregation at that time didn't cross my mind because in the small town where I was born, I was practically accepted everywhere. See, so segregation wasn't. I knew about it. I heard about it, but it didn't affect me that way.
Yeah.
Being the only black, in fact, as far as I was concerned, I was babied. But being the only black, I mean, and the town, the small town, the fact that they kind of favored me, I was favored.
Because of.
But you
Because
know,
why?
well, they what now?
Why?
Why?
Why were you favored?
Well, I guess because I was by myself. You know what I mean? Being the only black, and
No, so
now I noticed that when on one football game I was slugged. You know, I was slugged by and they got together and they got the fellow that slugged me. You know, protecting me. They got rid of him. They put him out of the game too. In fact, he broke my nose.
So this was during the game.
During the game, yeah, he slugged
And
me.
your other players protected
You know what? See, everybody didn't accept a black Mike like they did, like my peers did there in Onaga. Other team we played, you know, were prejudiced. Get that so and so using the N word.
Well, you must have had that
Was I what?
experience. You must have had that experience at some point when you were traveling with the athletics teams at high school.
Oh yes, oh yes, oh yes. Yeah, we had that when there. The other teammates would all go when we go to a Champagne. They'd be in a hotel. I'd have to stay at the black hotel, but it didn't cross my mind. It was segregation, but that's what happened. You know, they would stay. But later on, I noticed some of my contemporaries, you know, they'd run into that, and fellow teammates said, well, if they can't stay with us, we don't stay here. So they kind of battled that down. As far as culture, we were in doctrine, you know, as recruits and so forth. By the way, though, one of the things I always remember of our Custer is my brother Jack. He found out that we had just got to camp, and he came down and gave us a visit. He was attached to the field artillery. Well, both Fort Custer, there was black and white units, but of course they were segregated. In fact, we didn't see a white unit until they'd probably be marching through, you know, march through our area going somewhere. The camps were segregated, definitely.
What would be a new experience for you because you're coming from a town where you and your brothers and a couple of other families are the only African Americans, and now you're in an environment where you have a couple of thousand other black people. What was that like?
Right. Well, it was something new. It was something new, but at the time, it didn't impress me, and it didn't impress me until later, because it was just like you walk into something new. That's the way I felt. It was something new, you know.
Just another new experience.
Just another opening.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yes, Camp Davis is about 30 miles from Wilmington, North Carolina. And I forget the highway it's on, but it was in a small town. Holly Ridge was the small town where it was.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And Camp Davis, it was anyway. We landed in Camp Davis, where they took us off the train and lined us up. There was about 500 of us, and so there was a black sergeant out there. He says, "Everybody from A to K, move over here, and from K to Z, move over there." And so when the line that he gave us split Ish, my friend who was inducted with me, that split us up, and he tried to motion me in, you know, but I didn't do it. See, so that's where you and I parted. So what they did, then they took off the line that I was in. We went to our barracks, and the other went to their barracks. By the way, the next morning for breakfast, we found out there was 280 in the battery. Of course, that was broke down later on.
Uh-huh.
Mm.
That's a very large
But one
battery.
time now, and one time we found out then that we were attached to the 100th Coast Artillery.
Okay.
In fact, we were a searchlight battalion.
All right. You're a searchlight battalion.
And you know what a searchlight is? That's where they had the big lights, you know, try to catch the plane in the air, you know, there was training. But there were so many of us, they broke us up into that. And that's where we broke up into another outfit, another battalion. Broke us up. From the 100th Coast Artillery, they broke us up into battalions, and I ended up in the 450th Battalion, Battery A. Under
450th Battalion, Battery A.
Yeah, Anti-Aircraft Battalion. 450th Anti-Aircraft Battalion, Battery A.
Okay.
Colonel Pierce was the commanding officer.
That
my first time in the South, well, that was quite an experience, you know. Of course, you know, we had to stay, train, so forth. I think, I'm not sure about it, but they had a certain time, you know, before you even eligible to get passes. So we spent the time drilling, you know, and we had all black sergeants and things. And by the way, now there is when we first seen our first white officers. All of the non-commissioned
officers?
Oh, yeah, right. All the non-commissioned officers were black. That's when our commissioned officers come in. They were all white. And our first officer was Major. Major Harrison was his name.
Mm-hmm.
And
how long would you be at Fort Davis?
How long?
Yes.
How long did we stay? I think I stayed in for, well, in fact, I was originally at Fort Davis from 1941 in August until 43, January the 1st, 43.
Oh, so you would have been there for a couple of years.
Yeah, we was in camp for a year. See, I was there during the time Pearl Harbor was attacked, and then after Pearl Harbor, we didn't get home for Christmas, you know. The next Christmas, I got a pass to go home. Okay, as I told you before, my first commanding officer was Major Harrison. Never smiled, rough, you know. And well, we had boot camp, we trained. We didn't have any rifles.
No rifles.
No, we didn't. We stayed there for almost 9 months or a year before we was issued a rifle.
Oh.
The first one was the old time Springfield, you know, rifle was issued.
Now, wait, well, let me ask, was this just because the Army was not equipped? Was
right,
there some
right.
reason
It was because they weren't ready to see. In fact, from what we thought and what we did, they caught us flat-footed. They caught the government, but we weren't ready for it. So our training was. So I might tell you one little incident that happened on it, which I remember. We was all out, you know. We were treated, you know. We had the same thing the white soldiers did. We had the same thing, but we were just separated. Our food was just as good and so forth. But the only thing about it was our officers were all white. The one, you know, divisional were all white. It was a recreation period, and we're all out in the field, you know, having recreation. And the charge of quarters, that's any soldier, you know, that works from the office and go to you know, does little duties out through there. He come out to the recreation.
Okay.
Said the major wants to see you. And I said, what in the world is going on now? I said, "No, what so I, I was immediately, went in the major. This was cups, heroin, everything. So go clean yourself up. You got company. I said, come. So I went, took a shower, and put on my uniform. So come back out there. Went out there, and there was Uncle Dave in a command car.
Your uncle.
My uncle. There was Uncle Dave in a command car.
Who was not part of the military.
And I said, and by the way, he got passes for me, and he got passes for East. That's my friend, East. And we got passes. We went into Wilmington, and Uncle Dave knew a white family there. That was something unusual too. There was a black man, but he took us with us, and I know we sat and talked. They
now,
talked.
where had he come from?
He came from home, but what I found out later, that Uncle Dave had a personal friend with Aaron's. He was
Representative Leslie Aaron.
Yeah, right. Wesley Aaron. He was the head of the Army, some kind of committee, big committee. Anyway,
he was actually the House Majority Whip in 1943.
Let's get that straight. Take a break.
That's all right. Keep going.
And he was Majority Whip.
He was
Majority
Whip.
Of course, he sent Uncle Dave down there with a recommendation, everything to treat him, so on. So it made quite an impression, And the major,
yes, I bet it did.
This Major Harrison, he said, "What is your uncle say?" I said, "Oh, he's connected with the government somewhere." But keep in mind now about this incident, because this incident helped me later on I had no idea at all it would ever come up. I can go back to this and see where I benefited from this visit when he visited this man in Wilmington, this family in Wilmington.
Okay.
So that was the incident I want to tell you about when my uncle visited me.
That's impressive.
It also helped the feeling among my peers there in the Army too. They kind of looked up to me after that.
After that, I see. And well, what benefit did this white friend of Uncle Dave's?
What was the benefit?
Yeah.
Well, I might getting ahead of our part, but what it was is I had went home on a furlough, and you're home on a furlough, you spend your money and you get it, and so forth. Anyway, now my outfit was in Camp Davis.
Right.
So I left from Camp Davis. I had a 2-week furlough.
All right.
So I went home, visited Aunt Mamie and Uncle David and so forth. And
that's in Pontiac, Illinois. Not in
I
America,
went in Pontiac.
You come back to Pontiac. Okay.
Right. I visited them. Then my girlfriend had moved to D.C. She had a job in the government. So on the way back, I stopped with her. So when I got back to Camp Davis, I didn't have a penny. I was broke. And I found out that my outfit had moved to Fort Fisher.
And where's Fort Fisher?
Fort Fisher is about 12 miles. It's on the coast. It's about 12 miles from Camp Davis. And it cost 50 cents to get on the bus. And there I was, my bag out in the street, didn't have a penny. And so I happened to think, Uncle David's friend, he was some kind of big shot on the railroad. He's in this building here. So I went up to the building here, and in fact, he was in the conference, but he seen me, and I told him my situation. He gave me 50 cents, and I got on the bus and went to join my outfit. See, if they'd left me, if I hadn't joined my outfit, they would have put me in another outfit there in Camp Davis.
Right.
And I never would have got back with my Avery and my old friends.
Oh, right. And you would have lost all that good influence that you had built up from Uncle Dave's
Right.
visit.
So that was the incident I wanted to bring to mind. Right after Pearl Harbor, after I wrote the letter home telling them I wouldn't be home, thought nothing about it, you know. We went on to bed about 2 o'clock that morning, started blowing whistles and carrying on. And they got us all gone. They loaded us in trucks. We had I think it was either 155. Yeah, 155. We pulled in and took us to the coastline and spread us out on the ground. You know, got no, nothing. That's all we had. Just us in the uniform.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, when we hit there, they didn't even tell us the password. They just had us guarding the coast.
What was
So
the
that
password?
it was a rough night.
What was the password for? Was that?
I think the password for it has some. Now here's where I might stand corrected, but I do remember it was connected with baseball. It was either Babe Ruth or the New York Yankees or something like that.
Uh-huh.
But the password was connected with baseball.
Yeah, I was asking, why did you need a password? Was that in case you
Well,
saw?
that was for security. You see, when they bombed Pearl Harbor, the whole western coast and part of the eastern coast was immediately secured by the United States government.
Mm-hmm.
That's what all that rigmarole was that night. They just didn't. They just want your presence out
So
there.
they just want you. Okay,
You know.
they're showing a strong breath. Because you were there without.
Didn't
rifles
nothing happen because they moved us back to Camp Davis the next day.
The very next day.
Mm.
Uh-huh. So you were out there. Did you
Just
have
out
to
there
dig
with nothing.
trenches or?
Out there with, you know, like I said before, we trained with, we trained without guns and so forth. Of course, eventually, Uncle Sam got to going, and we got guns and everything that was needed.
Okay.
Now we have to kind of go back there because that's when they broke us up and broke us down. As I said before, when we first entered it, we were all 100 Coast Artillery. That's what we were. And so what they did, when as the war went along in Europe, the aviation fighting increased. You know, the air bombing and so forth increased. So what they did, they needed more anti-aircraft. So what they did, out of the 100th anti-aircraft battalion, 100, it wasn't battalion, it was a Coast Artillery, 100th Coast Artillery. They broke some into battalions. That's when now we were activated in Camp Davis.
Okay.
That's when they took us, so many of us, that's when they started breaking us up, you know. And so I ended up in Battery A, 450th Coast Artillery. That's what I ended up.
Anti-aircraft.
Anti-aircraft, right.
Okay.
Coast, we had 40 Bofor guns, 40 millimeters.
Did you see what life was like in?
Oh yes, when we trapped them. Now there was where we first hit the problem. That was in 41 and 42. That going in from Camp Davis, Wilmot, which was 32 miles away, and there wasn't. And at that time, there wasn't any way to go but by bus. And that's where all the trouble arose. The MPs, the military police, they were the one that loaded the buses. So the bus would pull up. The black soldiers were over here in this line. The white soldiers were over here in this line. They would pull up to the station, and the MPs would fill up, say 30 or 40 of the white soldiers. Then he'd say, give me about 7 or so of them. And they put us in the back of the bus. Now this didn't happen to me because I didn't get in that mess. When they started, riding guns, I just stayed at camp.
You just stayed
But
at camp.
but I did it. I went enough to know what was happening. See. And so, of course, the black soldiers resented that. So, they'd have riots at the bear camp, at the bus station. So it got so bad that our commanding officers designated trucks and hauled us into Bloomington on trucks. We didn't go to the
You didn't have to go
no,
ride
we
the bus.
didn't go to the bus no more. But what happened, it got so bad. What happened coming home? If there wasn't too many on the bus, them black soldiers, they beat up the driver and stuff like that. Or if they say for instance coming home, there was just coming home, there was 12 black soldiers on the bus and 4 or 5, they'd get beat up. Or and vice versa. So that's when it got so bad that he ordered trucks and hauled us in. But in camp, I didn't go to Wilmington too much either because, I guess luck was in anyway because things were so violent, They had 2 or 3 deaths that weren't,
Explain.
they weren't explained.
Uh-huh.
But what helped me is Avery and I, that was my buddy in the Army. We found a family, and when we went in, we'd visit this family. And by the way, I corresponded with her. When her name was Margaret Davis, and we called her Puddin'.
Uh-huh.
And so we'd go to her house, we'd have parties and so forth like that. So I didn't mingle too much.
So you're like not.
The one time the last time I went into Wilmington on a fast was Avery didn't go with me. I went in with another sergeant, and he got drunk and started something with a civilian, and the civilian pulled out a pistol and started shooting, and we left. He went this way, and I went. I didn't,
And that was it.
That was the one. I'd tell you that to explain how. In fact, I got documents later on about Camp Davis, where Camp Davis was. It said it got so bad civilians left.
The area?
Left Wilmington.
Oh, really?
Left Wilmington. Said Wilmington got so
because
bad
of the racial
with soldiers,
tension.
right? And the
With
soldiers,
the soldiers.
right?
Oh.
The racial conflict. It got so bad.
And your friend Avery, where was he from?
He was from New Jersey.
Okay. Did we
Plainfield, New Jersey.
were there lots of people in the unit from the same geographical area?
He what?
Were lots of soldiers in the unit from the same geographical
Yeah.
area, or were soldiers from all over?
No, they were from all over.
All over.
Yeah, they were. I mostly associated though when we went to with the soldiers are from the east, from New Jersey. I had a lot of friends from New Jersey.
Why was that?
They just hit. You might say they were more cultured. Run into everything in the Army. I don't care whether you're in the white soldiers or whether you're black soldier. When they mixed up with together, you ran into all. So, you kind of. It seemed like the ones a little bit more kind of got together.
And
Like
the other soldiers didn't resent
like
this?
instinctively, you take the black man, if he goes somewhere and the people are seated, there'll be some whites sitting here and they'll see some black. You go over and sit with the blacks. Well, that's kind of the reason we with the ones from maybe Michigan or New Jersey, something like that. That explains that.